Hi, welcome. This is a re-recording of the speech given at Speakers Excellence last week. This is about win-win situations, why win-win, what is win-win, and why now. So let's start with this. We have a vision as a company to heal the rift between nature and humanity and to create a bigger whole. And of course, that is beautiful, isn't it? Says everybody. But why us? Why me? And why now? Well, most people say, why now? Because all those laws that were passed by the European government, by other governments, have basically been postponed in a way because we have to deal with the lovely US government at the moment and everybody needs to put money into defense. So why should we care right now if it's not really the law yet? Can we not just wait until it becomes the law? Well, Los Angeles, nature doesn't wait for whatever government's ideas are of what the priorities should be. And I do understand that at this moment it looks as if everybody is for themselves, and we should really keep the information that is interesting to ourselves, which means I should only be doing this presentation in German. But nature doesn't wait. Nature doesn't know any borders. Nature is there, and climate change is worldwide. Whether we like it or not, we're in this together. So why don't we just work together? So I said, Los Angeles, it happened now. No matter what the cause was, who started it, it doesn't really matter because if climate change hadn't brought the conditions that are here now, it wouldn't have been that bad, pretty sure. Also, if you don't care about Los Angeles, maybe you do care about koalas. There is this article that scientists just find burned and starving koalas weeks after the fires, and they did not have a vet. Being burnt is one of the worst things that a body can endure. And these animals were by themselves. Maybe you care about that, or maybe you care about all those children in Africa that are dying right now that nobody really says anything about because of climate change, because they don't have anything to eat, they don't have anything to drink. Well, what is the first reaction that we all have? Of course, it would be this, right? Because you've listened to so many stories by the WWF and all these wildlife charities, and they always have these catastrophe stories, and it brings our energy down. And if we have our energy down, then we can't solve problems. Solve the problems that are actually there, that we actually have right now, and that is really not good. And I do agree. Some of the problems I really don't want to think about. And you can't always see everything negative, because if you see everything negative, then nothing will ever change, because where focus goes, there is where you go, right? Because that is where the energy goes. Then also you should put 95% of your energy into the solution of the problem. So why look at the problem all the time? And we want to make the future positive, so we can't be down all the time. Sure, we can make the future positive. I do believe that. I really do believe that we still have a chance to do that. But how do you do it? You look at where you are, you look at where you want to go, and then how to get there. And then you put 95% of your energy into the solution. I completely agree. But step one is that you need to know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, your map is going to be wrong. Right? So this is just in German right now. I haven't changed the presentation, but that is what it says. The map will be wrong. If you think you are in Texas and go into your plane and want to fly to New York, but in reality you are in Florida and you stick to the same map that you drew before, you will not end up in New York. I don't know where you're going to end up at, maybe in Seattle, I don't know, but you will not end up where you wanted to be. So you need to know where you are. So why should we care if this isn't happening here? You know, I mean, Los Angeles, I don't know if you're seeing this in the United States, but if you're in the UK, why us? Why me, right? Well, I don't know where you are, but I made this presentation, or I created this presentation for Germany, and you know, this is somewhere very much in the area where I live right now. I wanted to go and meet somebody there a while ago, and I couldn't get there. I had to drive for 15 minutes around. I know this area very well. This never happened before. I grew up in this area. I cannot remember a single time where that happened when I grew up, right? Valencia. I lived in Valencia in Spain for a year during COVID, basically. I just got shut in there. And this is what happened there. I mean, maybe you don't know anybody in Valencia, but maybe you know somebody somewhere else and have friends. A lot of people here in Europe know people in Valencia because they've gone on holidays there. This is happening now. This is not waiting until some law is being passed. This was my vet. I saved a few animals there while I was there because I was shut in the campground anyway, and they were starving and they were dying. So I saved them, and that vet let me do that. Take a look at that. It was totally and a lot of the friends that I had there don't even respond anymore. And even if you don't care about that and you say, oh, well, it's not me. Well, this is you. Microplastics and cancer. It apparently has a connection, and microplastics are everywhere now. And they are everywhere because of us, not because some animal will put them there, right? So this is something that we should be addressing, and we should be addressing right now. But then, of course, you say as a company, well, we are a company, we have to make profit, and that all everything. But what people don't see is there are win-win situations nowadays. You can make sustainability into innovation. This has happened in other areas before. It can reduce the risk that you have right now, and it can increase the profit. And that can be by millions and billions. And we've got a really nice example later where a company that you probably know made a decision 20 years ago that was quite a bit better than the decision of their competitors, and they are benefiting from that now. And that was sustainability. They reduced their risk massively. The others didn't. So, but if you want to profit from innovation, and innovation and sustainability is no different, then you have to be an early mover. Why do I know this? Well, I worked at Goldman Sachs during the credit crisis. And I'm not going to tell you any internal information about Goldman Sachs, but one of the things that people probably know anyway is Goldman Sachs and firms like that. They don't wait until the lawmakers are telling them to do stuff. They see what's happening and they adjust immediately. It was I got into Goldman Sachs by accident, more or less. It was one of the things that most impressed me about that company, how nimble they were and how fast they were in reacting. And because they were so fast and they changed during the credit crunch, they changed their systems. I'm not going to tell you how, but they minimized risk for themselves, but also got information that other people didn't have because they acted right away. And another bank, and I'm not going to tell you who that was, did not do that. They pushed back. They were traditional, right? And they were then later, because the regulators saw that some of the banks, some of the biggest and best banks in the world had made changes. They forced some of the other banks who had not made these changes to actually make them. Not all of them, just the ones that were necessary to stabilize the system. But the bank had resisted so long, they had so much more information to deal with, had so much more cost, so much more work, and had no upside at all because everybody else had the information already. And that is no different here in this change. Now, why would you be interested if you're, say, a bank, for example, or if you're a I don't know, investment advisor, or if you are a consultancy, for example? Well, clients do remember who helped them. And believe it or not, I did help with some of the systems. At least I gave proof of concept, which was then improved upon by my colleagues. And, well, people remembered what I'd done decades later. I literally still got jobs from I don't know where decades later. Well, at least one decade later. I'm not that old, but at least one decade later, it's more than a decade later, people will remember when you gave them the tip. So it can also actually be something really good for you. Plus, There are people who have masterminds in the world, and the reason why other people pay hundreds of thousands for these masterminds is because of the advantage that they have in terms of information. Having more information is always a good thing, right? So how do we get to a mindset first to look for these win-win situations? Because if we don't look for them, we won't find them. Seek and you shall find. Don't seek and ye shall not find, right? So why do you need mindset? You need mindset to have the courage to actually take a look at reality and not turn away and not be the ostrich. Because one of the first things that in any change happens is people will go into denial. And we've had denial for decades now. I mean, the whole climate change thing, I saw a TV show, which is still on YouTube now, in 1978 about climate change. That is why later I took the bicycle to school. So, this is not something new. And I believe Vice President Al Gore already gave talks about climate change 35 years ago. So this is not something new. This is not something that came out of nowhere. But people put their head in the sand. Some of them still do that right now, which is really surprising, which is probably why, it is a good thing when some people at the government level are a little bit younger and don't try to do things like they did them in the 1950s. Anyway, whether you believe in that or not, in order to be able to see a positive vision, you need to be able to see it. And there's a thing called reticular activating system. Tony Robbins talks about that a lot, but this is not something that he came up with. Obviously, this is scientific evidence that there are certain things in the brain that will filter out information that the brain doesn't want to see, or the brain thinks it doesn't need to see. So if you don't actually look for stuff, you will not find it, right? You have to have the courage also to implement the change that you're making, right? So that is what you need a mindset for. Business opportunities can also be hidden through misdirection. I do know that some of the lovely people who are behind the whole baby drill thing are also investing into hydrogen, right? So it's not as if they are not seeing where the world is going, but they want to have the upper hand and want to be able to make it work before everybody else. So, some misdirection is given so that other people don't go into those opportunities and give them the opportunity to figure things out. But nature doesn't wait. We need everybody on deck. We need all hands on deck right now. We can't be selfish and just look at ourselves and wanting to make the biggest profits out of all these opportunities without telling anybody that these opportunities are out there. This is lovely if you do that in business usually, but not when it's about the fate of the world and the fate of your children and the fate of your grandchildren, right? So you see, I'm a little bit upset at the moment at some of the selfishness of some of our world leaders. So please don't take it personally. Maybe you're upset as well. Maybe you know exactly where I'm coming from. Obviously, I'm German. I've been in Germany now for a while again. My English is still good, but I am much more direct than I would have been a few years ago in England, where I was always sugarcoating everything so that people wouldn't get upset. I am giving you the information. Take it or leave it, honestly. So how do we get there? We need to know what is possible, and win-win situations are possible. I can show you a few later. And also you need change management expertise. Why? Because if you don't have change management expertise, there is a study by IBM that says that most change management processes will fail in some area. About 60% will fail because people are not really into the psychology of the whole thing and underestimate what could happen during a change. We'll get into that a little bit later. So there's a bird's eye view first. What do we offer as a company? We do help heal the rift between humanity and nature. As we said before, we do this on two areas. The practical application, we show people what win-win situations there are that actually make a profit. So win-win means it's a win for humanity, it's a win for nature, and you make a profit. So it's not a compromise where you need to compromise profit in order to get something, right? But you make more. So 1 + 1 is not just 1.5 or just 2, it's 3, 5, or 10, which is what great innovation is, right? We also help implement with change management and mindset, usually talks. I used to do a lot of the implementation in London when I was working for investment banks. I'm not really into doing that anymore. I can if it's absolutely necessary, but I rather like to train people nowadays. We also give some help with personal change because, as I made the experience in one change in particular, if people are really afraid of that change, they will sabotage. 17% of people will sabotage any change anyway. That is not my idea. That is, I think it's a study of IBM. So it's 17% are saboteurs, 33% are late adopters, 33% are early adopters, and the rest are mavericks and, early movers, basically. But there will always be saboteurs. And one of the reasons why they sabotage things is that they are afraid that they will lose their job. Like in VW, for example, they are camping outside right now, hoping that they can force the company to keep the job, but sometimes the company needs to be able to compete, and they cannot do that if the internal people are the employees are fighting them. So it is much better to show an employee how he can find something else somewhere else or within the company that may actually be a much better fit for the person. Because let's face it, most of us, when we chose our first job, we didn't do that because it was such a great fit. We did that because somebody else expected us to. It may have been the parents, it may have been an uncle, it may have been society. But now, when we're a little bit older, we know much more what we actually like and what we're actually good at and what makes our hearts sing. And if we can then use a change that may not be welcome, but that may be forced on us to go there where we actually wanted to go, isn't that something that's a win-win too? So we are looking for win-win situations everywhere. And we have a job course there. We have a little bit of a podcast. We also have a book of how to change jobs and be successful in it. Partly because we have some quite good experience in that. We had to do that a few times, not because we were sad, but because of situations that were out of our hands, like a 1 year strike or COVID or Brexit, and suddenly everything was gone. So we had to do something else, right? So how do you do that? There is a system to that, and we do have that as well. There are other things that we offer as well, which are spiritual, but they are only in German, and it's not really something that we market. So as a bonus, we usually give the job courses, and we also have a business series, basically, of videos, or free videos that you can take a look at. How do you find win-win situations? So again, the win-win means it's a win for us. It's a win for nature. We know that we've done the right thing, which is a really nice thing to know. We know that we helped the weak, which is not something that's people in some countries are much into, but in other countries, like in Germany, for example, that is a very noble thing to do. And our children and grandchildren will still be proud of us in 20 years. And as somebody who knows what her grandfather and her father have done, let's just say you don't want your children and your grandchildren to be ashamed or to not want to think about what you have done. It is much better if they can say, hey, my father or my grandfather or my mother or my grandmother, they helped us preserve the environment. They helped clean everything up again that was destroyed before. They helped the beauty, restore the beauty or preserve the beauty that is still there, which is absolutely stunning if you take a look at nature. And the profit, because a change to win-win also means a change to innovation if you do it right. So there is a profit involved. So And the more profit you have, the more you can scale the win-win as well. So the more you can help nature. It is wonderful to do things on a volunteer basis. And I've done a lot of things on a volunteer basis for nature, for animals. And that is beautiful. And I did it in my free time. But the problem is you can't scale that, right? There is a limited amount of money that I will have from my normal job. There will be a limited amount of extra time I have. I can't scale that. If I make it my job and if I actually make a good profit with it, I can put more of that money into the same things that I wanted to do, the same things that I wanted to help with. I can employ people to do it with me and I can scale, right? So win-win is a good thing for organizations who want to help the environment as well. That doesn't mean that I want to put all charities on that course, because if a charity is currently having a purpose that is not profit driven, it may actually not keep to that purpose if it suddenly goes for profit. So it is very, very important that charities remain to be charities, but the firms that are already profitable, that are already designed to be profitable, they can just as well do it in a way that helps us all instead of destroys things in the future. Right. So one of the companies who did that is Suntory. That is a Japanese beverage firm. And they started buying, according to their website, they started buying nature reserves and woodlands 20 years ago. And why did they do that? In order to preserve water, their beverage company. Right. So it is a win for them. They reduced their risk and maybe also in the same way increase their profit by doing that. But of course, humans also benefited because they can still go into the woods and still go wood bathing. And the little newt in its pond is happy too because it's still alive, and so are the trees. So everybody benefits. And they probably bought that woodland for a very, very, very small amount. But the side, not just in reputational benefits, but also in real money benefits, is huge, right? Well, how do I know that it's huge? Because Coca-Cola apparently did not do that, at least not that I know of, and they filed a water report to CPD in 2022. You will not find it online anymore, but I did download it at the time. Now they have got the 2023 report for 2022 on that website, but at the time they posted this, and they take a look at the potential financial impact figure of water, limited natural resources, that being water. I mean, that is huge. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, and then 843. So 5, 6. So that will be 934 million, right? So a billion, basically, right? I mean, that's huge, right? That's the risk of water shortages. And of course, they were asked to say how they can address this, and they say they can address it with efficiency. And the potential impact figure has so many zeros there that I can't even see how many they are. But of course, they are going to have to invest in order to get there. You know, this isn't just going to happen with the flick of a switch. So that will cost them money, I'm guessing, unless they find a way to do this with money, which I would like to see. Right? So this is a huge, huge risk, right? Which needs to be addressed now. And Suntory did the right thing 20 years ago. And I'm guessing their risk isn't quite as high. So what we have done, we have put together resources. Some of this is in German now. Some of the previous resources, however, most of this website is going to be in English. There is a lot of win-win situations there with between nature and the environment, between humans and companies and the environment that also make a profit or that can make a profit in future. Some of these things are in German. This is agriculture and architecture. Some of the Pictures, however, in the architecture PDF are in English, so if you want to download those, you are welcome. These are on the website www.nevelle.de. That's Nevelle, that's Nevelle, like Neville, just all E's, .de. And if you go to courses and resources, then there is going to be an underpoint there which says positive environmental news resources. So this is where you can find this. Uh, Examples out of the architecture. This is actually in London, I think. Solar panel windows achieve record-breaking energy efficiency, and there are also some wind turbines there. One is probably a bit less good for bats and for birds, but the other one, as far as I know, is bird and bat friendly. And what does that give to the company apart from a reputational advantage and some cost savings? Well, it also means that you are kind of independent when something should happen to a power station. And as it happens, I gave this talk last week. 2 days later, or 3 days later, or days later, literally, power station went down that powered Heathrow, and none of the planes were going anymore. So this may be, considering what all these lovely dictators are doing in the world right now, it may actually be a good idea if your company has a building like this or is in a building like this, that it has some electricity even when a power plant somewhere is sabotaged or a pipeline doesn't work anymore, right? Other things like gardens on the roof here that will increase employee satisfaction and employee health, which is more and more important, will also probably um, affect who you can hire, because people will look for things like this. Like this garden on the left-hand side is in Canary Wharf. I worked in Canary Wharf for years and years. And it is lovely to have a garden like this to go into in your lunch break and have your meditation. And it's really good for you. It is a reputational advantage as well, because, I mean, take a look at every castle in the world. They've got a huge big garden. And I'm guessing that the king probably wasn't a horticulturist. It's something to increase the significance, right? If you have a nice garden. And that also goes for firms. The future. This is a startup that recycles CO2 from industry into useful materials, and some of them actually take the CO2 out of the air and recycle it and print 3D print stuff with it, which is really quite amazing. As far as I know, it can't be done by at scale yet, but this is a picture from the World Economic Forum and link, and you can look it up there, how far they have gotten with this, which could be really rather important in terms of climate change, right? Here's 3D printing. Why is this important? Well, for one thing, it's faster than any other thing, any other kind of construction. Construction work is one of the worst things for nature and for climate change. And 3D printing is much more efficient as far as I understand. So I'm not a construction worker, but this is what they've always said. And apparently this is already being done in really big buildings as well. Now, change management. Why is change management important? This is the slide that I talked about before. Take a look at that. You see that a lot of the impact is determined by mindsets and attitudes, corporate culture, lack of senior management support, and underestimation of complexity listed as a factor. And that is all in some ways psychology, right? So there are theories to change management. This is the change curve. Now, that is obviously the first denial is our lovely ostrich. This is the same as the grief curve, which you will know probably, and this is the same for change management as well. So first is denial, and then is anger, which is what we saw in the first few slides in this presentation. First you say, oh no, it's not happening, and then you say, oh well, I can't always look at the negative, and that would be anger, right? we don't really want to go into depression, but sometimes you have to go through this to get to acceptance to actually do something. And that is what we want to make sure people do. Now, there are other change management theories, the Lewis-Beck model, Lewin's change model, the Eckhart-Tolle change model. Then are some early ones. You've got Lewis Diamond, the McKinsey 7S model, Burke, Litwin, all of these come out of a book that is about change management, which is a change management qualification that I have. There are all kinds of other things that you have to take a look at in change management, including communicating change, stakeholder analysis, and management. Who do you include, and where do you include them? What I really like is Kotter's 8-step change model, and partly because it's also, he wrote this little book, which if you have children, you can read to your children. It's with this little birdie, what's it called? It's the book is called The Iceberg is Melting, and it's a penguin. So it's a little penguin that sees that the iceberg is melting and how he gets buy-in and gets people to move, although nobody really believes him in the beginning. Of course, it is a metaphor for climate change as well, but it is a really fun book that explains this slide, basically. Now, mindset. What do we need mindset for? We already addressed this, to find the strategy, to make us able to actually see the solution, because sometimes we don't see it, although it is right in front of us. Also, the state of mind that we're in will determine how we measure and how we value what we see. I mean, taking an example like in hotel room, for example, if you put a card into the hotel room, then the lights go on, and if you take it out again, the lights go off, right? But it wasn't always that way. It used to be that you would just push the button like at home, right? Can you remember when it happened the first time that you actually had to put the card in? Well, I can remember it. So, did it make a difference whether you got to the hotel late at night at 11 o'clock after a really long flight? You were so tired, everything went wrong on the flight. You finally got to the hotel, you go upstairs, and then you try to click on the light, turn on the light, and nothing happens. And then you try it forever and it's not working. You have to put your clothes back on again, and then you have to go down to the reception, and of course they're not there at the moment. You have to wait for a while and you're sweaty, and then they finally tell you have to put the card in. And how upset were you? As opposed to the first time you got there, it was just a 2-hour flight. You had a nice chat with somebody next to you, and then you get to the hotel, you go upstairs, but it's during the daylight. You don't really care about the lights, but you see, oh, something doesn't seem to be working. So you go down to the reception, and there's this lovely receptionist, and you have a lovely chat with her, and you're making some jokes, and she comes to you even, and shows you how everything works. And I mean, how do you value that change to that thing then you see, oh, wow, this is really cool, right? I mean, this is a real advantage to the hotel, because once you take the card out, all the lights go out. It's a saving to the hotel. It's good for the environment. How cool is that? I don't think you're going to see that if you, in the first scenario, when you got there at 11 o'clock at night. You'll just think, oh my God, how stupid is that, right? So the state of mind you're in will very much will very much determine how you value a change and how you value even see the advantage of the change, right? Another thing is Henry Ford. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. We've all heard that. And then pessimism can be such a, well, let's take it that way. If you say, oh, well, you can't do anything anyway, you can just as well go to the pub and drink, right? Why not? And if you do it though, and it doesn't work, oh my God, that's going to be really embarrassing, and you're going to look bad, right? So it is very tempting to be a pessimist, because you can just sit down, flop down, be negative, and be pessimistic, and you don't have to do anything, right? However, if you get over that and you actually go and create the future, it will take power, it will take energy, but it is so worth it, because that is where fulfillment lies. I mean, do you want to be at the end of your life and say, well, I haven't even tried? I mean, how sad is that? Right? And what if your neighbor actually manages? You say the whole time, oh no, we can't do this, we can't do this. And then your neighbor comes around and he did it. And he was successful. And he gets all, and the recognition, and everybody thinks he's a great guy. And you sit there and everybody just looks at you and says, oh, well, you said you can't do it. You're a little bit of a loser, aren't you? Do you really want that? I wouldn't. What if it does work? What if it's possible? But you will have to change your thinking if you want to get there. And that is a quote out of the Harvard Strategic Management course. What got you here won't get you there, right? Add-ons. As I mentioned before, we've got the books and the course and the mastermind videos to help you. They are for free. The course isn't for free, and the book, costs like a few quid, but it's not the end of the world. Neither of them is. If you buy the win-win course, then this will be an added bonus for free. If you don't buy the win-win course, you have to buy it extra, but it is really worth it. And if you have any questions, contact us on whatever is the contact email at www.nebel.de at the time. And I wish you all the best, and I hope that you will find the best win-win solutions for us all, because we are all in it together.